you're playing defense. You are the apologist and they are the critic.
Okay.
Now, I spent some time studying church history, especially the early days of the church. And what I found was we were not playing apologists.
Really?
We were being the critics.
Interesting.
We were on the attack. That is the way that a lot of Latter-day Saints do apologetics, is that what they do is that critics launch attacks, and then you have sites like Fair Mormon that try and dodge those bullets. And I think
I got a picture for you.
Yeah, pull up the picture here.
There you go.
So you have reasons to doubt, okay? Like we all know this, but you also have reasons to believe.
All right, so this is a super intense title. Stop playing defense. How do members of the church need to stop playing defense? Jacob Hansen, go.
So I once heard a really good analogy it was actually from a presuppositional apologist, actually a Calvinist, but he made a great point. He said, what happens is that people will come up and begin to attack your faith. And you should think of it like a gunfight. A person has a gun.
Like a musket fight?
No, in this case, it's a 6-shooter.
A 6-shooter, so not quite AR-15.
Yeah, and maybe they have two
like
of them for
Doc
this analogy.
Holliday. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I mean,
Doc Holliday.
maybe they have multiple.
Okay.
But what they're doing is that they're going to start shooting their gun at you. Now, you have two options in this engagement. You can either try and dodge the bullets, or you can actually try and take the gun out of their hand and disarm your opponent.
So you want to be Jackie Chan instead of that guy in the Vietnam movie where he was just shooting at the ground and then made the dude dance. Okay.
That's exactly right. You want to avoid the old cowboy dance boy, and they shoot at your feet. And you
yeah,
dance
exactly.
around.
Okay.
That's the wrong apologetic strategy. But that is the way that a lot of Latter-day Saints do apologetics, is that what they do is that critics launch attacks, and then you have sites like Fair Mormon that try and dodge those bullets.
Or they try and debunk in as close to real time as they can the attack, but they don't realize that it's harder to defend an attack than it is to launch an attack, and that most people don't actually end up reading the rebuttal, and so the lie just sits in the zeitgeist and ends up converting bit by bit, person by person, testimony by testimony. Okay.
Yeah. So the basic idea is that what critics want to do is they want to shoot their gun at you, and they want you to dance and try and avoid all the bullets.
Okay.
But that is a losing strategy. At the very best, all you're going to do is you're going to hold your ground. And it's very unlikely that you're not going to get scathed in some way in that interaction, right? And so when I think of that analogy, when that guy made that analogy, I couldn't help but think of like the Fair Mormon website. Now, I'm not saying that I have a problem with what Fair Mormon does. I think that there needs to be a response to attacks that are made.
Yes. You're not attacking what they do. You're just saying that it is by definition reactive.
Yes,
okay.
You're playing defense. You are the apologist and they are the critic.
Okay.
Now, I spent some time studying church history, especially the early days of the church. And what I found was we were not playing apologists.
Really?
We were being the critics.
Interesting.
We were on the attack.
So like we were the ones saying, look, Brigham Young, yeah, he would say this society is degenerate and is just creating unhappiness. Meanwhile, our people in the Salt Lake Valley are happy. And then Joseph Smith, yes, was saying their creeds are an abomination. Okay.
Go read the Key to Theology by Parley P. Pratt. And tell me that book is an apologetic track where he's playing defense. No, he's not. He's making a criticism of the Christianity of his day and why it doesn't make any sense.
So you're saying that as members of the church, we need to go on the offensive and be criticizing the society instead of allowing the society to criticize us and then end up trying to debunk their lies in real time.
That's in a way, yes, but I think that there's ways to do this that are productive and there are ways that are not. But
so who first?
Lies and falsehood and bad ideologies. And the idea here, though, is that I'll use an example. So I recently have had some interactions with Bill Reel. We did a series of conversations together, and Bill actually, so I'll tell the story real quick.
Okay.
Bill comes on and he basically, I originally reached out to Bill years ago and was like, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with you about sort of the nature of beliefs. And he responded back and essentially said, no, I don't want to have that conversation. What I want to do is see if you can defend these ideas. And he basically listed like the CES letter.
Did he just give you the Gish Gallop of all of that? This is what angers me. And it's a recycled crap that you get on Exmo subreddit.
Yeah, he basically said, no. I don't want to engage in a conversation with you. I want to
complain at you.
I want to shoot my gun at you and you have to dance and dodge the bullets.
Good analogy.
Exactly. Okay. I'm going to test your belief structure. It's like, here, I'm going to tie you up to a tree with your arms behind your back, and I'm just going to punch you in the stomach over and over to see how strong you are. Okay. It's like, that's a stupid apologetic strategy. And again, all you can do at the end of the day is maybe hold your ground. So eventually, though, we did end up agreeing to have a conversation. And Bill was like, I don't want to debate. We're not going to debate. And so I was like, okay, Bill, like, I won't debate you. This will be a genuine conversation. And we're going to explore topics like morality, faith crises, testimony. And so we kind of went in and had these conversations. And in the first couple of conversations, it went pretty well. And as we explored these topics and our different perspectives on the notions of morality and that, I think Bill got a little frustrated, to be honest, because by the third conversation, he very quickly changed and he...
Well, yeah, you mopped the floor with him for 2 hours on 2 different days. I felt bad for the guy. If you weren't Korobor, I mean, like, I really, honestly, I'll be honest with you, I couldn't make it through, like, past 5 minutes on either one of them. Actually, no, one of them I lasted about 30 minutes. That's a lie. I lasted 30 minutes in the first talk, and it was readily apparent that you mop the floor with this guy intellectually, and he was just an angry baby. But that probably really pissed him off. So by the third time, he was like, I'm pulling out the big guns. And by big guns, I mean the CES PDF. And then just started listing off all the problems on the PDF, right?
Yeah, and he basically was like, look, I'm going to test your belief structures. And it's like, wait a minute here. Like, I thought we were having a conversation, not like an interrogation where it's like, I'm going to go through and like grill you on every controversial issue in the church to try and expose that the church is
I want to talk about the coward the least amount possible. So just tell me how he's demonstrative of the system at large, because
I agree. So what's going on here though is that there's a tactic here that is used, and it's used all the time. It's not just used by Bill. It is to put you on the defensive to where you have to defend every problematic issue in the church, but they don't ever have to answer any questions. It's a classic power move in a conversation. It's that you don't, we're not both having to engage on equal footing here, okay? It's, I don't have to defend anything. I just have to make you defend ideas. And that is just, in conversation, that is a much tougher place to be on the defense than to be the one who's on the offense who doesn't have to do anything. So what I'm saying though is that if you actually go and play offense and begin to look into the worldviews of these people, you will find that they're insanely shallow and that the issues that they bring up are actually like really small, the issues that maybe I have. So let's say, he was bringing up like, oh, did Elder Oaks like know about electroshock therapy at BYU? Meanwhile, I'm asking questions like, do human beings have agency?
Yeah.
I'm okay, guys, like, what are the big questions that face us as humanity? Like,
is there a God?
Yeah. Like, do we have agency? Does morality even exist? Like, the very foundations that he needs to be able to criticize Elder Oaks is a basis for morality, which he doesn't have. And so people like Frank Turek and other Christian apologists actually are very good at this. They show that the atheists and those who adopt different worldviews actually destroy their ability to even make the arguments that they're making.
So now here's my only problem with what you say. I very much agree with the premise that, look, the church has done well when it's on the offensive against society, saying this society is corrupt and fallen. Here's a better alternative, and the alternative is Christ's way, not this way. I think the first century Christians did that. I think the early church did that. We're not doing it now, but we should be doing that. So I agree with you. However, when you say that we're going to have some kind of robust explanation to all the members of the church, that there are attacks upon us online and this Gish Gallop gun that you talk about shooting at us, all of these harpoons online, really just needs to be taken away from them by this deep theoretical understanding of how their lack of understanding of the font from which morality springs, leads to the abyss of their non-consciousness. No, you've lost me, right? The average person just thinks, oh crap, Joseph Smith did marry a 14-year-old? Oh, wait, what? And yes, we can say, no, it wasn't a marriage, it was a dynastic sealing, and no, this is them. I have found it much more effective saying these people are lying to you, they do not care about you, show me proof they care about you. And
the thing is there what is effective in actually convincing people and what is actually a strong rational argument that you're going to make. Like, I'm more in the camp of I tend to be I'm trying to make the rational case, and I'm saying that if you're going to make the rational case, you have to have the foundation before you can talk about those things. If you're just going for what's going to convince people, there's a difference between how you sell an idea and what the idea actually is.
Well, also, I just realized something now in real time. I have to repent because I was superimposing my personality and my thought process on you, and you are a much more philosophical thinker. Okay. Whereas I don't want to say I'm a more practical thinker because that's kind of a weighted statement, but I've never really been concerned about the eternities. I viewed the plan of happiness as working for all people and being the literally most inclusive system, moral system that the world's ever come up with in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And that's something worth defending, and you're not stupid if you believe. And so you coming at it from a much more philosophical stance, I actually very much appreciate, because you do some of the computing that I just don't. I don't have time for this. I'm not going to read Derrida and, see how he actually bastardized the concept of right and wrong in order to Trojan horse pen into our zeitgeist. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and if you want to pull up, I sent you over an image in the Discord of scales. Because what happens here is that we have to, I don't like the analogy of a shelf. I think it's a bad analogy. I think a better analogy is an analogy of scales.
Okay, and for those of us that are just tuning in or don't know what the shelf is, oftentimes in Mormon dialogue online, people say what broke my shelf, meaning what made me lose my testimony of the gospel, is this thing I heard about online, and usually it's some kind of straw man or lie about church history that is at best only 10% true, but shakes the person to their core enough that they decide, oftentimes usually having wanted to leave anyway, that they're going to leave the church and then terrorize all of their family online, calling them hateful bigots and all the other woke cult talking points. So that was a very weighted definition that had some baggage behind it. All right. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, so you don't like the terminology of a shelf. What do you prefer?
I prefer the analogy of scales, and I think
I got a picture for you.
Yeah. Pull up the picture here.
There you go.
So you have reasons to doubt. Okay. We all know this, but you also have reasons to believe. When the church tells you, hey, doubt your doubts, what they're actually saying is don't forget about the stuff that you actually do know. What Bill Reel and ex-Mormons always do is they point to all the little red dots. They say, look at all these reasons to doubt. But the question is are there actually reasons to believe that are bigger than that? That I'm aware of all these things that are in the CES letter and that all the ex-Mormons are always talking about. I know it's not new information to me. So they're just well, how can you stay after you've seen the things that we've seen? And it's because you guys don't even realize how much is on the other side of this scale when you actually consider all of the reasons to believe. Now, here's the point. Most of those reasons to believe go far deeper than Mormonism, right?
Oh, interesting. Okay. So what are you saying? They go deeper, just into Christianity in general, or just into theosis in general?
In theism, yes. Essentially, you got to go back to the very beginning and say, do you believe in truth? Do you believe in, why is the universe the way that it is? Do I have agency? The fundamental questions of the human soul, and you can actually learn things that you actually believe about that. Do human beings actually have dignity and worth? And the thing is, when you realize that by rejecting God and Christianity, you actually end up you can't make sense of the world that you have. And so if you have all of these reasons to believe, like that there is a God.
Those are the red marbles, right? No, those are red is reasons to doubt. I don't like that because red is Republican. And I find this to be a very politically motivated graph. And who are the green people? The Green Party, they don't even accept donations and they never win anything. So anyway, keep going.
So the point here is that for somebody like Bill Reel, they don't even see the things on the other side of the scale. Or if they do, they see very, very few of them because they've adopted a secular lens. Once you adopt a secular lens, you can't see the things on the other side of the scale. That's why I say to so many people, their problem isn't with Mormonism. Mormonism is a conversation that we have about Christianity. It presupposes Christianity.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because remember, the things about Mormonism that are unique are like, we believe in God, that's common to all theism. We believe in Jesus Christ, that's common to all Christians. What makes us different is that Mormonism in the specific is a specific narrative and understanding of Christianity.
And we flesh out Christianity. The only reasons why the basic level Christians don't like us is because we just have more details about the plan of salvation. What is heaven like? What was the nature of the fall like? Where the 12 tribes of Israel really are, which we know is hollow earth. So no,
but to some extent it's true. Like another analogy you can use is how could I like if somebody wanted me to defend calculus, but they weren't allowing me to utilize the algebra and arithmetic that it's based on,
or even base 10 mathematics.
Yeah, I mean,
which for all you progmos out there, just use your fingers.
and so, but the basic idea here is that without those in place, you're right, none of it makes sense. That's the thing is when people like Bill Reel or other anti-Mormons are like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like, you're absolutely right. From an atheistic perspective, it doesn't. But that's the point. Like the problem is that you are coming at this from the view of an atheist.
And nothing can make sense with your thought process.
That's the real problem. Then again, go on the offensive. Say, let's examine atheism. Does it make sense of the world?
So has this been working out for you? Have you noticed that you've brought more souls to Christ? Droves of people coming back to church.
I think.
Are you baptizing people in the river?
I don't think you.
Is the truckee?
I don't think you bring people to Christ through arguments. I believe you bring it through to them through the Spirit. However, I do think that belief can only exist in an environment that can be intellectually defensible, and so this is like the most basic ground level of creating an environment where belief can flourish. And so, but just to go back to this, it is, if we're going to sit here and banter about if Joseph Smith could speak the Adamic language, or if Elder Oaks was involved with electroshock therapy, like those are like little teeny tiny marbles that, like, the bigger question is, do I have agency? Does morality exist? Does the universe have a purpose? Because the answers to those questions, once you answer them, they open up entirely new possibilities.
And they inform the smaller questions like, did Dallin H. Oaks actually participate in X, Y, or Z thing? Was that bad? Is there even a concept of bad that we can defend? And if so, what is it based on? You know, like you need these higher level questions answered in order for you to even understand the lower level ones.
And let's say like in my conversation with Bill Reel, he's like, well, I'll grant Christianity and I'll grant, I'll grant Christianity.
That's the guy that chickened out of our debate, right?
Yeah. And
Bill
he also,
Reel?
just so everyone knows, I've invited Bill now to engage in actual formal debates with me to continue our interactions. I'm still waiting for him to.
Even more boring discussion.
No, these are going to be this is going to be wild debates, but he doesn't seem to want to engage with them. So we'll just stick a pin in that. But my point is this:
rule number 21 of anti-Mormons, they refuse to engage.
Unless it's on his turn where he gets to basically do an interrogation for an hour. That's the only way he'll engage. Now, my point here is that if you grant Christianity, the questions you even ask change. Because now I'd have to say to whoever this anti-Mormonism deals with, okay, so Christianity is true. That means there is a God. That God can answer prayers.
And miracles can happen.
Miracles can happen. He can speak to me. God calls prophets. We know that. We know there's good reason to believe that he will continue to call prophets. He has apostles. He has by their fruits ye shall know them. Do you
Mormon
see how
chicks are hotter.
do you see how when you have all of these things in place, Mormonism suddenly begins to speak? But without them, like, yeah, of course, like, it doesn't make any sense.
So how do we go on the offensive, like you say, stop playing defense and make people believe in that lower level conversation first?
The very first thing I ask them is, do they believe in God?
Okay, and what if they say no?
Then I say, okay, what do you believe in?
Okay, I would say I believe in most things that can be proven, that I can see. Law of gravity works, 9.82.
Excellent. You are becoming what's known as a logical positivist.
Okay.
This is a big fancy word. We're basically saying you only believe in things that are verifiable.
By the way, I feel very depressed right now. And I feel like I want to throw myself into booze and golf on Sunday in order to try and console my lack of a sense of self-worth. And it's already happening. So please get me out of this, but I will continue to play the role. No, anyway, keep going.
The basic ideas, and then we would now we're getting down to the there's even more fundamental than even of God. It's the level of epistemology. It's how do you even know what's true? How do you detect what is the nature of the world? What are you, Cardin Ellis? Like
a stud.
But genuinely, like you start to get into these questions that are the most fundamental questions, and that's where you begin to. I think you have a conversation with someone, and what they'll realize is that at that level they're totally ignorant. And at that level, there are actually good reasons to believe that morality exists, that you have agency, that you are more than just a meat computer. Like, yeah. and once like that, I think if you posit the idea that you're a meat computer with no agency and all the rest of it, like the world becomes so absurd that a person has to conclude that that can't be the case.
Interesting. Okay, so here's my question for you. I'll let you do a lot of talking. Let you, by the way, that's so arrogant. I'm grateful you did a lot of talking. All right.
Thanks.
But I would say, first off, I agree with your premise that we can't be on the defense. We have to be on the offense. Okay. And I actually really like what you said, and I'll probably even put it on the intro, that, and repeat me if I misquote you, that belief can only exist in a place that's intellectually defensible.
Yes.
Is that fair?
I'm basically paraphrasing Austin Farrer.
Don't give him credit. You can take credit.
Who was quoted by Neil Day Maxwell frequently that said that belief only, I'm butchering it, but essentially it was that
it can only exist in a place or a space that is intellectually defensible. It's totally a cohesive sentence, so we'll run with it. So I agree with all of that you have to go on the offense. Now, one of the things that I love about my friendship with you is that yours is oftentimes very philosophical. You think a lot of these deep thoughts, and I think that does help and is ultimately necessary. Those deeper questions have to exist. And I don't think you're wrong, because your personality type, those people that listen to your channel, that participate in Facebook and so on and so forth. I haven't been on Facebook in eons. You know what I'm saying? But you're like crushing it on Facebook, right? So I think the personality type that craves and needs that responds very well to you. And I think that you are right, especially for those people. I think simultaneously, and I'm not saying you're wrong, I think simultaneously, the vast majority of people, and I love this graph that you brought up. This is such a good graph. I'm going to show it to the audience again. I think most people do this reasons to doubt and reasons to believe scale naturally. And I think in their subconscious it does, but it's based on culture. Now, you and I are just different. You know, I've noticed the culture of the church saved me from being a statistic. I'd probably be in prison right now if it weren't for the church, right? Whereas you probably don't struggle with that. You know what I'm saying? So
maybe not as much as you.
Yeah, but, yeah. So I just almost there. You know, my mugshot looked good though. Anyway, I should have used moose that day. But anyway, I'm just kidding. So anyway, I would say I think the average person looks at this scale naturally, and they weigh their testimony naturally in their mind. But what gives it the green marbles and the reasons to believe is much more of a fruit-based and practical thing that is the culture of the church. And I've noticed that as our culture succeeded throughout the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the church did a lot better. But as the culture atrophied, it kind of had its heyday in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. But as the culture atrophied and we started, honestly, the top of the pride cycle, where after 50 years of success, we kind of started letting things go on autopilot, like the Boy Scouts. We started letting some things go on autopilot, like the youth programs. And we started divesting from a lot of robust programs that used to be flagship programs. I think a lot of those green marbles went away. And so some of those doubts that are inherent to everybody, I mean, nobody can, if they stop and actually think about it, think, man, Jesus Christ raised Lazarus from the dead. And for some reason, 2,000 years removed from 2023 and in a book that's shrouded in as much cool mystery as the Bible, that's believable. But like, according to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I hold that same priesthood, that same authority to act in God's name. Could I be pure enough and strong enough spiritually that I could raise somebody from the dead? None of us believe it. And it's not because, actually, I shouldn't say none of us believe it. Kind of none of us believe it's us because we know we're so weak and because we know that, like, you know, we kind of suck and we sin and not, like, we're not Jesus and nobody's Jesus. So could we do it? And and that doubt creeps in. Okay. And some of those red marbles, I think, become kind of permanent residents in our mind. And part of the reason why we have to read the scripture so often, and we have to engage in the culture so often, we have to take the sacrament, and we have to try and repent constantly and be pure, is because sometimes life isn't about what we don't do, but what we do. And one of the do's we have to engage in are putting green marbles on our scale, okay? And as we've lacked the green marbles on our scale, that scale's gone tipped towards the reasons not to believe. So I think the offensive that we have to engage in as a church is creating more culture. That's part of the reason why I like what you do with Thoughtful Faith and what I like with what we do with our channel. I very intentionally use different color marbles on this if you pull it up. Oh, you were doing 4D chess, bro. Okay. There's a reason I chose those, because you could say that these are different types of reasons to believe. And I would argue that most people, if you're coming from a belief in God and in Christianity, that most of your reasons to believe aren't necessarily quote unquote scientific kind of reasons. They're reasons like you're saying. You believe in God and you're seeking God. You believe in Jesus Christ. And so when you're evaluating the church specifically, you're like, when we say that the church is true, what do we mean? We mean, is it true to him? Like, is this the church that is aligned with Jesus Christ? When I find errors in the church, like, mostly in the middle management of the church and the church office building. And even if not, if I find fallible prophets, that doesn't surprise me. That isn't shocking. That is to be expected. What is unexpected and frankly shocking is the way the church can transform people's lives, including my own. Yeah. And when you have personal experiences with God and with Christ, you all of a sudden start putting these green marbles up there. Now, the blue ones are there. Let's say the blue ones are the scientific reasons. And then there are yellow ones, which are other reasons. It's like, which come from maybe from theism. But what happens is there's a dispute about what actually is legitimately a good reason to believe, right? And so this is the great battle. And what I'm saying is if you adopt a secular lens, all of the green, all of the yellow, they're gone. They're not on the scale anymore. Because you've rejected, you no longer think that it is valid in any way. And you don't realize that all of your red marbles are also off the scale as well, because the red marbles are dependent upon the green marbles. And you don't realize that your scale isn't measuring anything because gravity isn't even real at that point. You know what I'm saying? And that your scale is just floating in the ether like the useless, depressed blob that you have become. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and that is actually a valid critique. Once you begin to go down the road of sort of logical positivism, for instance, which people can look into, and why that's a flawed philosophy and epistemology, is that you end up deconstructing everything. And I always ask people, I don't care what you don't believe. I've already been told that. I want to know what you believe in and why. And what I end up finding out is that my worldview compared to other worldviews has way more good reasons to believe in it than to doubt it. And ironically, actually strangely requires less faith. Like, faith requires less mental gymnastics and requires less faith than some of the scientific principles do.
Oh, absolutely. Like
intelligent design is way simpler of a process than this weird, convoluted explanation of how we came to get on this earth that literally requires so much time that chaos could do nothing but interrupt and destroy over such a long period of space, time, and like it's the amount of faith that you have to have in people who say that cloth masks stop COVID and that men are women, you know what I'm saying, is absolutely laughable.
Yeah. And so what I think has to happen, and I think you're right, I think the way to get people to believe is you have to stack the scale. If all you do is focus on all the reasons to doubt, your scale will eventually tip that direction. And that's what the anti-Mormon types want to focus on all the time. But the question is are there reasons to believe, and are there good reasons to believe? But here's the kicker. Those reasons generally are not particular to Mormonism per se. Mormonism, the reasons to believe in Mormonism have to do with Christianity. Christianity, the Bible, the belief in the idea of priesthood authority and the rejection of the Trinity, those are the uniquely Mormon things. I'm talking about a belief in God and a belief in Jesus Christ. And if you can go back to those foundations and strengthen them, which is where most people's cracks are. Most people's cracks are actually, I would go even further than that. I would say it's in their epistemology. They embrace logical positivism, which is the belief that essentially the only thing that's valid truth is that which is basically scientifically verifiable, like you can put in a test tube kind of thing. That sort of a worldview. Once you adopt that, you can kiss God goodbye, you can kiss Christ goodbye, you can kiss all of it goodbye. But also,
and you can only trust anything that was done in the past 60 years.
But you the problem is that it's so bad that you can kiss everything goodbye. You kiss like morality goodbye, you kiss consciousness goodbye, you kiss like the world.
You kiss Alexander the Great goodbye. Exactly. You can't believe in the historicity of Alexander the Great. It's absurd. That's
the problem. And so if you want to deconstruct everything, you can do that. But what I think is that we all ultimately need to live our lives, and we need to find out, the big question is this: what do you believe in and why? And we have a beautiful structure that emerges into theism. And then like from the witnesses that we're endowed with, a theism can emerge, Christianity can emerge, and then from that, the restored gospel. But
so do I have to divorce my wife and descend into nihilism before or after I read Christopher Hitchens?
It genuinely is it's a sad predicament that a lot of people in, because they don't realize where their loss of belief is coming from. And what I want the saints to do, if I could have any advice to people to help stack the reasons to believe, is go back to the foundation. That's what I always tell people. You know you're not a meat computer. You know that you have agency.
Trust yourself.
Well, it's kind of like they say, doubt your doubts. Basically, they're saying...
Or trust yourself.
Think about the reasons there are to believe. You have good reason to believe that you have agency. You have good reason to believe that morality exists. You have a good reason to believe that the universe that you inhabit has a purpose and a creator. You have good reason to believe, out of all of the explanations for God that are out there, that God, whatever this higher power is at work in the Christian, in Christianity, and that you can place your faith that Jesus Christ was who the New Testament made him out to be. There are good reasons to believe this, but they build upon each other. If you don't believe in God, you're never going to believe in Christ. If you don't believe in Christ, you're never going to believe in the restoration. So where's your real problem?
And if you don't believe in the restoration, you're never going to eat green Jell-O or fries.
Exactly. And just to close, but this is the thing, you got to stop playing the game where all you're doing is dodging bullets that are being shot to you by the people with the red marbles. That's not the game to play. That's a losing game. At best, you hold your ground and you keep a couple of the red marbles or half the red marbles off of the scale. But if you're not stacking the other side of the scale by recognizing the reasons to believe, then you'll eventually, the scale will tip. And that's what they call the shelf breaking. It's really just the scale is tipped in the other direction. And it generally is because you have not stacked the right side of your scale.
Okay, rock on. Well, actually, I'm going to open this up to the comment section. What is your reason to believe? What is your biggest thing that's like boom shakalaka? For example, this is an odd testimony of Joseph Smith, but one of the reasons why I really think Joseph Smith was inspired and he carried the power of God with him was because of how he forgave. I mean, the betrayal that his beloved friends and family did of him, and how he just summarily forgave them. Like W.W. Phelps was welcomed to the church like 3 times, you know, like after having done horrible things. Like the amount that guy forgave is really, at least in scripture, second to only like biblical figures and Jesus Christ himself, who said, "Forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do." So, it's an odd testimony of Joseph Smith to believe he was a prophet and had the power of God because of his forgiveness. But you know, those are my marbles. So,
but it's not. And I'm just going to throw this at you real quick. It's not, because remember, you are judging Joseph Smith presupposing that Jesus Christ, or you already have this testimony of Jesus Christ, and you're judging Joseph Smith by the standard of Christ. That's what we're doing in Mormonism. Remember, separate them.
No,
Mormonism
I get it.
is different than Christianity, and it is different from that. And
you can't separate prophets from the idea that Christ called apostles and prophets. So yeah, like I totally get where you're coming from. So let us know in the comment section, what is your big thing? What is your big reason to believe? I just told you mine. It's forgiveness and Joseph Smith. What is your big reason to believe? I'd actually be really quite curious to see what everybody's green marbles are, shall we say. Yeah, keep the conversation going. Please remember to like this video. This is Midnight Strike Through Mormons. We'll see you guys in the next program. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with us all the way to the end of the video. If you haven't had a chance yet, please like it. If you haven't had a chance yet, please subscribe or click on the alert bell so you receive an alert for all of our videos. And if you haven't had a chance yet and you've got children in your family, please consider checking out our sponsor's book, Sheeple. It's a children's book written by Royal Ragsdale, one of our viewers, that teaches your kids how to stand up for their faith, how to stand up for their values, how to stand up for their friends in the face of adversity so they don't become one of the sheeple. It's super cute, super affordable, and super fun. It's also available on Amazon for an affordable price, and the link will be in the description below. Please check it out. Tell them that Cardin sent you, and check us out on midnightmormons.com. Also, if you'd like, we have a little bit more content. There should be a video right about here and another video right about here. Check those out as well. This is Midnight Strike Through Mormons. We'll see you guys in the next video.